epigenetics is the expression of our genes, and it turns out that the expression of our genes matters even more than the code of the genes themselves. In a very real sense, we can help 3/4 of humanity avoid the diseases and manage the diseases that are actually that would otherwise kill them. So this is truly a fundamental and extraordinary step forward in public health. So we're truly working around the globe to find the best ways to help as many people as possible to live as long as possible, as soon as possible.
Hey Tom, how's it going?
Hello, how are you?
I'm very well, thank you. I'm very well, thank you. I'm excited about this conversation because we've had several chats back and forth on WhatsApp and email and whatnot. And the topic that I'm about to speak to you about is something that I find really, really intriguing because it has huge ramifications for an entire industry. And I knew you'd be the person to really delve into some of these topics about, because I picked up your book and I love it. It's a really easy book to consume. And I got done with that. And just to introduce myself to people who will watch this, CEO of Kick & Co Synergy. We're a ghostwriting and marketing agency that will work with global CEOs such as yourself to really understand what their message is and help them package it the right way to send into the world. So when I got wind of what it is that you're actually about and what you're putting out and what your company is about, I thought it was really interesting. So getting a hold of the book is something I would advise for people to do. But yeah, I'll let you speak more on this, obviously, as we go on. But yeah, welcome. I'm excited about this conversation.
Kalu, thank you. And it's kind of you to be excited about this. And I think there's good reason to be excited about it too. It really does represent an opportunity, not just to revolutionize the insurance industry, but actually to help a lot of people become more healthy. And that's kind of what it's all about. So I appreciate that you, in your broad awareness of what's going on in the media world, kind of picked up on this, and I'm happy to chat with you.
Yeah, absolutely. And just starting off our conversation from the top. Human life expectancy, right? Very interesting name.
Oh, my company. Yes, my company. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, just let's talk a little bit about your journey leading up to the company and then leading up to the book. So what has your career trajectory been up until this point, and why human life expectancy and why epigenetics?
I'm glad you asked. I mean, there's good reason to be excited about this. I've spent much of my career as an executive in insurance as well as a consultant to top insurance companies worldwide. I led innovation and technology strategy for a major US insurer, and I led consulting practices in 2 major consultancies, both in the area of insurance, innovation, and strategy. And in that light, I ran across thousands of different technologies that could revolutionize insurance. I worked in telematics. I worked in digitizing sales and service and claims and all the things that insurers these days are doing. Then in late 2016, I ran across epigenetics for the first time. I'd never heard of it. And probably like many people viewing this video right now, they've never heard of it. So what quickly occurred to me, though, is that it is truly a technology that could revolutionize insurance and help a whole bunch of people to live longer, healthier lives. And I got so excited about it that I decided to found this company called Human Life Expectancy, Inc. And also around that, I did an in-depth study with my expert team on human life expectancy, what the history of human life expectancy is, how it's more than doubled since 1900, due largely to advances in medicine and technology, and what that might mean for all of us going forward.
Yeah. Oh, that's interesting. Obviously, the initiative to see and to spot an opportunity and dive head first is quite impressive. But do you have what really drew your personal interest in epigenetics? Obviously, it has evolved over the years. It's not just a buzzword like AI is today. Everyone is keen into that buzz. Is epigenetics just like that, or what's making it so transformative that you had to plunge yourself headfirst into this?
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, what I quickly discovered about epigenetics is that it's extremely different than genetics. You're probably familiar with genetics, the DNA that's in all of our cells and stays exactly the same throughout our entire lives. Right. Well, epigenetics is fundamentally different. Our bodies
Okay.
are actually even better than we thought they were. So what happens is when we get sick, or when we smoke, or whether we do other behaviors, our body actually goes up and down the 3 billion sites on our DNA and turns on some genes and turns off some genes. And
Right.
that action happens on the epigenome. Epi means on the surface of in Greek. So it's kind of on the surface of the genome, there's these
Yeah.
chemical reactions that turn on and turn off the underlying genes. So
Mhm.
put simply, epigenetics is the expression of our genes. And it turns out that the expression of our genes matters even more than the code of the genes themselves.
Right. Right. So why do you think now is a good time for the world to embrace this idea of studying epigenetics, understanding it, and using it? Why do you think now is the time?
Yeah, I mean, it's relatively recently discovered, but what has been found and proven about it so far is that first, and most importantly for insurance, you can estimate somebody's biological age. And their
Mhm.
biological age can be younger than or older than their chronological age. And this
Right.
is truly groundbreaking, because what it means is that for the first time, we can actually look at different interventions. And by interventions, I mean just simple things we all do every day to try to live longer. Some of
Right.
us are running, some of us are taking cold plunges, some of us are meditating, all of that. But net, until today, we haven't had a good way of figuring out, well, how well are you doing after all that? So it's kind of
Right.
it's similar to dieting without a scale, right? You do the best you can, but you don't know how well you're doing. Well,
Right.
now that we can measure biological age, we can say, well, how well did that 3 months of training for running do in terms of your biological age? Did it
Yeah.
slow your rate of aging? Did it even reverse your rate of aging? How did your diet that you tried change? How did quitting smoking impact your biological age? And importantly, how do all of those things together add up in terms of how well you're doing at living a
Yeah.
longer, healthier life?
I
And so
see.
with this metric, individuals, doctors, and yes, insurance companies can help their customers to identify which interventions work best for them. I want to live in a world where people are not penalized for the genes they happen to have been born with and had no role at all in creating. To
Right.
me, and I think to most people, that seems like a just and appropriate way to run a society. And that's the way many countries around the world currently deal with genetic data.
Right.
Importantly, however, epigenetic data is fundamentally different. As we said
Mhm.
before, your genetic data stays the same in every cell of your body forever. So it should
Right.
be jealously guarded, because it really is the most fundamental code of you. That
Yeah.
being said, the expression of your genes changes dramatically based on your age and based on your behaviors. And
Right.
so, first of all, it's a fundamentally less sensitive type of data than genetic data.
Okay.
Second, and importantly, there are very easy and important ways to ensure that personally identified information, PII, is kept away from insurance companies. Insurance companies don't want to possess epigenetic data or genetic data. And our
Okay.
company allows that to happen in a very easy way. In short, it's simply this, where individuals give a sample of either their blood or their saliva. They can do it through the mail. We then send it to one of our labs to kind of do the analysis. But
Mhm.
the insurance company provides a code for that individual. So we never know the individual's name or any of their personally identifiable information. We then
Yeah.
do our epigenetic analysis, come up with our results of that analysis, and then give the results, not the data, but the results of that analysis back to the insurer, or if they prefer, only give the results to the individual, so that the insurance company never gets the PII data, and they don't even have to get the results of the data if that's the way they and their customers want to do it. And of
Mhm.
course, it goes without saying, but I'll say it anyway, we have absolutely top-notch, world-class security for our data systems, as do
Right.
our insurance partners. So if
Right.
there were any bad actor, what they would have to do is break through our codes, get our data, break through the insurer's codes and get their data, and
Mhm.
discover the single file that links all of our data to theirs. And the odds of
Right.
that happening are really astronomically low. So again, people should be concerned about their data. I absolutely get that point, and we take that to heart and have designed our business from the core around making sure that that is not a problem.
Yeah, and I think you driving this narrative of like to help people understand exactly what epigenetics is and its applications, I think is powerful, because again, people want to learn more about protecting their privacy. They also want to get the best out of whatever it is that companies are offering to them, right? And your book actually has a dual mission, in my opinion. Obviously, the subtitle, helping policyholders live longer and healthier lives. And then the broader topic is revolutionizing life and health insurance with epigenetic testing, right? What aspect do you think is driving you to put out this content more? Is it, or are they mutually inclusive? Like, what exactly is the broader goal of things? Is epigenetics going to just revolutionize the insurance space, or is it going to help policyholders live longer, healthier lives?
Yeah, I think the easiest answer to that question is look at the name of my company, right? It's Human Life Expectancy Inc. Our ultimate objective is to help people live long, healthy lives. And insurers are I'm in the process of helping insurers realize that they can play an extraordinarily important role in helping that to happen. And candidly, that's a role that many of them want to play. Life insurers, as you might imagine, it can be a little tricky to be a life insurer because you basically collect premiums while somebody is alive and don't pay it back until after they're dead. And so from a customer interaction standpoint, that's not tremendously satisfying, right? How much more satisfying is it both for the policyholder and the insurer if the insurer went to them and said, hey, customer, we know that you want to live a long, healthy life. We want you to live a long, healthy life, and we're willing to invest in you to make that happen. We're willing to help you make that happen. And so we can be your partner. And the way they would implement that is by doing epigenetic tests over time to track and improve somebody's biological age.
Yeah.
In addition, of course, the tests discover whether somebody has early signs of some of the major diseases that are hurting all of us. So in addition, you can also get back to them with, oh, and you might want to get to a doctor and check out whether this disease or that disease is something that you should be worried about.
Yeah. And the data that it's measuring, the epigenetic tests, how far are we in terms of the advancements made with this technology? Are we from significantly being able to slow aging, right? And because if you can tell you how old someone is chronologically as well as biologically, it should be able to also let you know what kind of diseases, like I suppose, are pending in their future based off the habits that they have, right? So obviously, it's a good step to curing major diseases. And some people even consider death a disease. So, you know, are we a long way out from curing some of these things, and are we a long way out from curing death even potentially?
So I think the quick answer, if you mean a complete and total cure, the answer is probably yes. But in terms of improving people's ability to avoid, deal with, and yes, cure some of these diseases, we can do things today on that. And that's really what this is all about. I mean, the reality is that 3/4 of us today die from heart disease, from cancer, from diabetes, strokes, and other large non-communicable diseases, all of which are a function of our behaviors. What we eat, how much we exercise or don't, and in what combinations have a big impact on whether we get these diseases, how serious these diseases are when we get them, and whether we can actually cure them. I mean, there are whole types of diabetes that have been effectively treated through behavioral interventions. Yet, there's so little that has been known about which interventions actually work best at helping us live longer. Again, epigenetic tests can give us that data for the first time. So in a very real sense, we can help 3/4 of humanity avoid the diseases and manage the diseases that are actually that would otherwise kill them. So this is truly a fundamental and extraordinary step forward in public health.
Yeah, you make a very good argument, right? If this is, I guess, publicly accessible information about what the wonders of epigenetics, why hasn't it been widely embraced and really deployed in the market yet? Like, what's the most irrational argument you've heard so far?
What's the most irrational? Oh my goodness, there's many of them. But I think that the simple and the best answer to your question of why people haven't done it is truly, I don't think people know much about epigenetics. It's a very new science. I mean, biological age was only really discovered that you could predict biological age through epigenetics in, I think it was 2013. And it's been refined and finally got really good about 2018, and now it's absolutely excellent. But that's pretty recent. Yeah. And the Venn as I like to say, the Venn diagram of people who both understand insurance and understand epigenetics is actually a very small amount of overlap. And you might be looking at a big portion of that overlap right now. And so I think the quick answer is it's relatively new. Another answer to that question is the price of epigenetic tests has been relatively high. So, I mean, of course, the first few human genome sequencing was, the billions of dollars, $2.7 billion to get done. But now you can get the same thing done for about $400. An epigenetic test now is going to run you about $200 today. But there have been new processing techniques discovered that show you that you can get the test done for less than $10 per person. And in a way that benchmarks favorably with the more expensive tests that are otherwise available. So why now? One, people are just getting to know what epigenetics is. Two, the price is coming down dramatically. And three, the range of things you can predict with epigenetics, biological age, diseases, behaviors such as smoking and drinking, which insurers really care about, but as well as other things, diet, exercise, relaxation, stress, all these other factors. Epigenetic predictors now exist for them, and new predictors and better predictors are coming out truly weekly. So there's a really good reason that now is the time to get smart about and to start using epigenetic tests.
Yeah, that makes sense. And you actually outline phases of epigenetic advancements in the book.
Thank you for mentioning. Yeah. So this, I mean, this is a bigger topic, but it's an important one. So I basically outlined 4 different phases of epigenetics as it's going forward. The first is the one we're in right now, which is, I call it more and better predictors. And that's exactly as I described. The more data we get from more people trying different interventions, the more predictors we can create around which behaviors have the biggest impact on biological age. So again, more and better predictors are coming out pretty much weekly. That's phase 1. Phase 2 that we're just embarking upon is what I call optimal interventions. It's where you can identify which interventions, again, whether it's running or quitting smoking or whatever, is going to be best for you individually. And we're just at the beginning of that phase. But again, we've got all the tools we need to enter that phase right now. A third phase that we're just beginning to get into, but is absolutely going to be the big thing going forward, is personalized medicine. Everybody knows the basics around, in general, it's good to eat healthy and exercise and, get good rest. But which exact type of diet, which exact type of exercise, and which combinations are going to work best for you? That's personalized medicine, personalized behavioral activities as well.
Solutions per person. It's not just generic.
Not just generic. So that's kind of the third phase that we will have the data to do in a very important way soon. But to do it, we've got to get out there and use the tests. And that's kind of where we are right now. So we're at the beginning of kind of personalized medicines enabled by epigenetic testing. And then that enables a fourth phase, which is further out, but still very much within the realm of planning of major scientists who are working on these things. They believe that ultimately we're going to be able to rewrite the epigenome. So you've heard about genetic engineering and rewriting the genome. Well, we're also well on our way to being able to rewrite the epigenome. And there's increasing evidence that shows that truly what aging is our cells losing their epigenetic signatures. Or said in a less technical way, our cells ultimately kind of forget who they want to be over time. An eye cell might say to itself, hey, I'm an eye cell when it's young, but it kind of loses what it wants to be over time. And so it stops doing some of the things that it should do, and it starts doing some things that it shouldn't do, and so it ages. And so there's an increasing body of evidence that truly what aging is our cells forgetting what they want to be. And the reason that's important is if we can rewrite the epigenome, we can restore the epigenome to its youthful state, and in a very real sense, cure aging. That's the prospect. And of course, that sounds outlandish. And in many ways, it kind of is outlandish. None of us are planning for that right now as something that's going to happen quickly. But we also see it as an inevitable outcome of this epigenetics. Once we get more and better predictors, once we're able to identify optimal interventions, once we can come up with personalized medicine around somebody's specific epigenome, then we'll be in a way to understand, okay, well, how could we reset it to its youthful state? And again, cure aging. So those are the 4 stages that I think epigenetics will inevitably go through. And that's again why I think this is such a big deal. It's not just about tests today. It's about optimal interventions. It's about health. It's about personalized medicine. And ultimately, yes, it's about curing aging.
That's interesting. Very interesting. Oh, well, that means society should prepare to live longer. If we're embracing epigenetics. Yeah, so like, because if we're getting healthier, obviously no one wants to die now, ever. Most people don't want to die ever. But like, how is society supposed to grapple with this new reality that we're going to start living longer, healthier lives? Because overpopulation is a thing that many people are worried about, even though there's a polarizing topic right now. But the idea that there's going to be more people on Earth, how are societies built to handle that?
Absolutely. So as all this became apparent to me, and as I did my research for my company, Human Life Expectancy, Inc., I absolutely went through, my team and I went through the detailed research of what has human life expectancy been historically and how are technologies and other things likely to change it going forward. And we did come to the conclusion that human life expectancy is likely to increase by more than 10 years in the next 20 years, global human life expectancy. That was our conclusion. I did an interview with Aubrey de Grey, who's a world-renowned biologist focusing on aging and longevity. And he believes that what's really going to happen is in the next 2 to 3 years, science will advance to a point where scientists truly believe and anticipate that we will soon, let's call it in the next decade or 2, be able to extend people's lives, not by 10 years, but by 30, 40 years. And when that happens, people will plan their lives differently. Governments need to change dramatically. And so he has a very important message that we must anticipate the anticipation. We've got to anticipate the date when people will anticipate that this is going to happen. And he believes that's only going to be 2 to 3 years from now. We'll see if that's true. I personally think he may well be right. And so, yes, there's a lot to do, a lot to think about. And because of that, despite the fact that I'm, of course, I'm not a philosopher, nor a econometrician and all that. That being said, I founded the Human Life Expectancy channel on YouTube to explore all these issues. We have videos on, well, hold it, won't too many people be alive then? How will we feed all those people? And we basically debunk that is not an issue at all. We talk about all kinds of things around, how quickly the human life expectancy will go and what it means for our lives individually, what it means for our businesses, and what it means for our societies. In short, though, yes, it's a tectonic change in humanity, truly, that we should start thinking about and planning for very soon. And that's what the Human Life Expectancy channel on YouTube is all about.
Yeah, and that makes sense. And just looking at things from an entrepreneur's frame, I'm seeing like there's a ton of opportunity in this space. Because like you said, it's not an old science, and folks like yourself have jumped head first to not only solve the problem and introduce and educate the people on the technology. You're also looking at, I suppose, making a killing where there's an opportunity for that. So just talk to me about the business aspect of things, like who's benefiting from this technology and who can take advantage of it.
Well, at its core, you're right, is the fact that the vast majority of people, I would say almost everybody, wants to live a longer, healthier life. Right, we all do, and also we're very inelastic around that demand and that desire. We will pay pretty much anything to live a longer, healthier life. So as we're able to do that, of course, it seems quite plausible that there are tremendous economic rents that we can go after. And yes, I'm an economic animal, perhaps like everybody else. And I founded the company in addition to helping humanity. Yes, it is not a not-for-profit, it's a for-profit company. And we think there's extraordinary potential to create value here. But notice we're creating value only by helping people to live longer, healthier lives. And in my view, that's the single best way to do that.
Right. And that's beautiful. So thinking about the hoops that you'd have to go through, like policies, are there any policies that really bottleneck your advancements with this?
There are. I mean, it depends on various countries. I think at its core is a misunderstanding or a failure to distinguish between genetic and epigenetic data. The notion that I mentioned before around genetic data never changes, but epigenetic data does change. Well, that fundamentally changes how you would want to regulate that data. Unfortunately, regulations often start with the premise that epigenetic data is the same as genetic data. And so they put, in my view, undue limits on the use of that data. And the problem with that is, honestly, I fear we may be making a really important mistake. So I mentioned that human life expectancy doubled between 1900 and today, largely as a function of 3 new technologies: antibiotics, vaccines, and the pasteurization of milk. Those 3 inventions really were the primary things that caused our human life expectancy to more than double around the globe. But the bad news around all that is each of those advancements took over 60 years to roll out across the world. And in those 60 years, millions of people died that did not have to die. Now, you might say that's an error of omission rather than an error of commission, but to the people that died and the people that loved them, that distinction means absolutely nothing. They died, right? They died, right? And I think we're making the same mistake today. The mistake is we have a technology, epigenetics, that can tangibly, reliably measure how our biological age could vary as a function of interventions and allow us to discover which interventions could more reliably help people live longer, healthier lives. And there is a cost to delaying that. When you delay that, you're delaying helping people find the interventions that will help them live longer. And as you do, yes, again, because 3/4 of us die from these diseases and they're a function of behaviors, it is absolutely true that people will die that do not have to die the longer it takes us to roll this out. So there are absolute issues in regulation. There's issues around the public understanding or misunderstanding what genetics and epigenetics is all about. But it's absolutely worth the fight, because at the end of the day, we can absolutely help a lot of people live longer. And candidly, what's more important than that?
I wanted to follow up that with speaking about countries that are leading the charge in the application of epigenetics and insurance. Can you what nations are like spearheading the move right now?
You know what? It's really interesting. There are nations really all over the world that are advancing in this. So, for example, as you might imagine, the US is doing pretty darn well because a lot of the epigenetic research is done in the US. And of course, many major insurers are based in the US. So that's a great place to start. But it certainly isn't the only place. There are companies in the UK. There's countries such as Saudi Arabia that recognize they need to change their economy to be more about healthcare and are really looking to support this type of thing, that have funding for and are regulations that actually support the use of this technology. There are other countries, such as I'll choose South Africa, another great country that has a tradition in leading in new medical applications. And also South Africa has a wonderful kind of, I'll say, national ethic of what's called Ubuntu, which basically means I am because we are. And so people recognize that they're less reticent to offer their data because they understand that it'll help people and it'll help us all to live longer, healthier lives. And even countries such as China have that in common too, where people are much more used to sharing information for the common good. So we're truly working around the globe to find the best ways to help as many as people as possible to live as long as possible, as soon as possible.
Right. That's a great say. That's a great I like how you put that. But outside of insurance though, like public health in general, does epigenetics play any role in advancing public health outside of insurance?
Absolutely it does. So again, I don't consider myself a public health expert, but what I do know is that governments around the world have an absolute interest in helping their people to live longer, healthier lives.
Right.
I would even put the argument out there, if government isn't helping their populations live longer, healthier lives, exactly what is it they are doing?
Right.
Most fundamentally, what is government for? But to help us to live longer, healthier, happier lives. And so increasingly, I believe that governments are and should acknowledge the role that they can play in helping their citizens to live longer. And also, it's just kind of good fiscal policy to do so. If by giving a cheap epigenetic test, you can discover that somebody has cancer in a way that you could discover earlier than with other approaches, you've saved the medical system a huge amount of money in curing that cancer before it gets serious. Same thing for heart disease, same thing for so many others. So, and also as the world moves more towards telemedicine and more efficient ways of distributing medical care, diagnostics such as epigenetic tests, which again can be done inexpensively through the mail, are really, we think, the future of healthcare for many countries. So let me give you another example. India. India, of course, a huge country, right? What is it? 1.3, 1.4 billion people right now. More people there than in any other country on earth right now. To put a U.S.-style healthcare there simply would not work, right? They don't have the resources, and the individuals don't have the money to put into that. It just would never work. It would never work. And so countries like that are looking actively at approaches to medicine that involve much more upfront diagnostics, such as epigenetic tests, and then use those tests to suggest which treatments might be in place. And again, in India, one thing that recently happened is the new health minister instituted a policy where individuals are given $7,000 a year, on the order of $7,000 a year, to take care of their own health. And so again, this sort of democratization of healthcare through the use of epigenetic tests is, I think, the wave of the future. And we're in discussions with numerous governments around how we can make that happen.
And actually, that's a great segue to what I wanted to ask next. Like, if this is good for nations, it's good for the citizens, it's good for everybody, it's good for mankind in general. I'm sure you're chasing real collaboration opportunities with several of these entities to pitch the ideas to them, like HLE as a body, right? What's some of those collaborators that you're actively either working with or pursuing, or already have worked with?
So we're working with major insurers to roll out pilots of epigenetic tests right now. We're working with governments to assess the potential for these tests and pilot these tests on their populations. We're working with genetic and epigenetic labs around the globe so that they can get better and better at processing them, so that we can get this analysis done anywhere around the globe quickly and efficiently. And so there will be other partners as well. We're in the US and other countries, we're actively reaching out and working with regulators and actuary societies so that they kind of understand the implications of epigenetics for their specific areas. The list does go on and on and on. And we are absolutely wanting to collaborate with anyone and everyone who's interested in space. We know it's going to take a true team effort to make this work. And we're proud to be experts in the relatively narrow area of just knowing epigenetic testing and what it can show and how it can show it efficiently. And work with the many different agencies and companies that can use it for their own purposes in general, for good of their customers. I should have mentioned, we're also working for, outside of insurance, we're working with other companies who have an active interest in helping their customers live longer, whether it's pharmaceutical companies, whether it's nutraceutical companies, or whether it's even just consumer products companies that are involved in the behaviors that would help people to live longer. We can offer them through epigenetic testing proof that their specific products are things that can help people live longer, healthier lives. And that's a claim that many have made before, but now there's a true way to prove it. And we're working with them to do so. So thank you for the question. Yeah, I mean, a broad range of collaborators, and we welcome the opportunity to work with all of them.
Yeah, absolutely. How can people learn more about Human Life Expectancy Inc? Yeah, how can they reach you? Obviously, I know how I reached you, but just say that.
Absolutely. So absolutely. Well, of course, you can go to our website, which is at humanlifeexpectancy.com. You can look at the book that you mentioned, which is Revolutionizing Life and Health Insurance with Epigenetic Testing. That's a great way to get a top level understanding of what epigenetics can and should be within insurance. And of course, we'd welcome a conversation with anyone at any time. And I'm sure at the end of this video, we'll post contact information.
Absolutely. That sounds good. It's been an engaging moment with you, Tom. I appreciate your time. Thank you. Thank you
very much, Kalu.
Yeah, absolutely.
I appreciate your interest.
Yeah, absolutely.